Okay, that looks live. I think we're live. Live, live and dangerous, live and deadly. Just live. So, late summer heat wave in Melbourne. In fact, officially, today is the last day of summer, and after the temperatures having been a bit lower than maybe would be expected in February, looks like today and the next 2 days are going to be over 35 Celsius. So, no, all the way through to Sunday, they're saying now, I notice. So that's 4 days in a row of over 35 Celsius. Hello, Justin and Catherine and Miss Fox Vacation. So, yes, that's a bit of a turn up for the books. For us to have the usual February heat wave right at the end of February. Jendai, how are you doing? And Keiko, hello. Oh yeah, you've got warmer than usual weather in England, Keiko. That is in fact scary. I'm just going to see, the big tell is what the minimums overnight are. Yeah, it's not meant to get below about 25 Celsius until Monday. So that's a long time to go without the temperature dropping under 25 Celsius. And hey, big boy, Miss Foxification, you had a monsoon come and go, did you? I think, look, we're all getting strange weather. Like, yes, we continue to get records around the world. So yeah, yes. You want to play the final countdown? Yeah, but I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, really. We don't know how bad it's going to get. But yeah, it's not looking good. Catherine, you got the heat wave in Adelaide as well? Oh, God, that's practical. When it's a heat wave, you wash your winter weight quilts and jackets, and it gives them enough time to dry. That's very practical. And hello, musical aviator and crossfitter. Oh, God, you're going to the Avalon Air Show, musical aviator. Yes, you are running the risk of heat stroke. I don't know how much shelter they provide out there, but not being under shelter in the way the sun's going to be for the next couple of days, not good for your health. A CrossFitter, like Facebook posts on the Pearl Conviction. Man, I try really hard to fucking dial it back a bit because, oh my God, I'm so outraged by the people defending him. Like, they are fucking abominations. It's just does my head in. It is the final nail in the coffin of those public figures who promote themselves as the voices of conservatism, the right. It's the final gasp of them having any credibility at all. The fact that they will defend a convicted child sex abuser because it fits their ideology is absolutely sickening. I mean, and you look beyond that, the history of Pell, and talk to anyone. Talk to anyone in law enforcement or anyone who works in child protection, or anyone who deals with survivors of sexual assault. You look at the history of Pell. You say, if you put it to them, okay, so this person's finally been convicted of a serious child sexual assault. They've been followed by allegations most of their adult life. They got into a position of power where it's a known fact they actively concealed and protected serial predators. they made it very clear time and time again they didn't care about the people who were the targets of these predators. The reputation of their institution was more important than the suffering of the people he was supposed to protect. Some of his closest associates, people he lived with, turned out to be among the vilest of sexual predators and abusers. And now he's been convicted of this one incident. What are the chances that was the only time he offended? Talk to anybody who knows, and you will get one very clear answer. Hello, Laura. Good evening to you. Keiko, it's interesting what you say about what his lawyer said, which was universally condemned, except by the people who are actually defending Pell. Yes, he said the act was a plain vanilla sexual act, although it was against the will of the child. He's trying to say it wasn't particularly violent, wasn't particularly forceful. And that whole thing, besides disgusting people, confused people. Like, if Pell's maintaining his innocence, why is his lawyer describing the act of which he was convicted and saying, sure, it happened, but it wasn't that bad? Well, that's the weird complications of the legal system, because Pell has been found guilty. So from the perspective of the courts, he did it. Pell maintains he didn't do it, but the court has gone, he did it. And so what his lawyer is doing is trying for the most lenient sentencing possible. But he can't continue to say, he never done it, Your Honour, because that would at the very least aggravate the judge and would also possibly count as contempt of court. So the lawyer, although his client maintains innocence, the lawyer must now argue on the basis that the court has found him guilty. So that's why the lawyer of the evil scumfuck who claims he's innocent made those statements that seem to be an admission of guilt. It's one of those weird, twisted things in the legal system that even though the guilty party is maintaining their innocence, and the guilty party's lawyer, if asked, will say, my client is innocent, this was a wrongful conviction. When he's arguing for sentencing, he has to argue from the basis that the court has found him guilty. Which, again, when you hear the lawyer saying, well, you know, he did it, and it was, you know, against the will of a child, it wasn't that bad. It was like, oh my, everyone was sickened by it. And in fact, this is incredibly rare. The lawyer actually apologized for the language. Lawyers basically never apologize for the evil shit they say in defense of their fucking criminal clients. This guy, he said he used the wrong language, and that was a mistake. That was like, whoa. That was almost unprecedented, actually. Yes, Laura, I think it is pretty bad for the Catholic Church. But as you say, Keiko, the church will survive. But like, he was seriously, he's the third most senior Catholic in the world. It goes Pope, some other guy, I assume he knows where the Holy Foreskin is, and then Pell, and Pell was in charge of the money. He was a real hard-nosed member of the hierarchy. And there's all of the fucking people saying this ridiculous shit about, oh, I don't think the evidence was there. The burden of evidence on this case was higher than most because of how high the stakes were. And honestly, that shouldn't have been the case, but it was. there are a number of credible allegations against Pell, and they weren't taken to court because when the police and the prosecutors looked at them and they said, we don't think we stand a good enough chance of getting a conviction here. That's the thing that most people don't realise, because the vast majority of times when someone goes to trial, they're found guilty. And that's because in the majority of cases, the police and prosecutors won't take a case to trial unless they're reasonably sure they're going to get a conviction. So a whole bunch of other allegations against Pell haven't been taken to court. And as you talk to the police involved, they're saying, this is not saying this didn't happen. It's based on the evidence we have. We doubt our ability to get a conviction. They went ahead with this and another case because they were convinced of their evidence and they were convinced that he was guilty and that they could get a conviction. The reason we had the suppression order, Pell was actually found guilty back in December. The reason we had a suppression order is there was a second case that was going to go ahead, and they just this week decided not to go ahead. Now, whether that was, we don't need to convict him twice and maybe we don't want to put these survivors through a trial, or whether they went, oh, look, maybe this one isn't as strong as the one we got the conviction on, and if he got off on this one, it might cast doubt on the conviction. Whatever reason, there's a number of possible reasons why they didn't go ahead, but they didn't go ahead with the second case, which was the second case that the police were confident of their ability to get a conviction. Bear in mind, the first one, they were confident of their ability to get a conviction. They got a conviction. So yeah, guilty motherfucker. But yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see the conversation going on, Miss Foxcatch, wondering why it is so widespread in the church. It's widespread in situations of disproportionate power. And the church is a very closed society, and this has happened, this has been shown with a number of religious groups, that the more closed and insular the religion is, the higher the risk of not only sex offenders, but those sex offences being concealed. Now, there is a lot of argument about maybe it's worse in the Catholic Church because of the celibacy requirement. It drives everything underground. It would probably be impossible to prove that, but yeah, it's yeah. And Laura, you are correct. There are a lot of Protestant churches that have had sex offenders in their clergy. There's been Jewish groups in Australia that have had problems, and there's been Muslim congregations that have had the same problem. It's a thing that happens. And hello, Chronic and YouTube. Justin, it in theory can be more difficult to get a conviction with one material witness who was the victim, as opposed to multiple witnesses. But in the overwhelming majority of cases, the only witnesses to a sexual assault or rape are the perpetrator and the victim. And convictions are down to sometimes forensic evidence, sometimes just the compelling testimony of the witness. And as I said before, the police would not have gone to trial unless they were convinced in the compelling nature of their witness. And it turns out they were right. Coffee buzz, going through a dry spell doesn't turn a person into a pedo. Well, I think it's complicated. And yeah, David, what's the problem? Is it religion attracting pedophiles, or is it creating them? These are the things we probably would never have conclusive evidence for. Like I said, I think it's complicated. I think the power structure is one of the dominant elements. You look at, okay, and the whole spectrum of things, like when you look at, the Me Too movement, it's been shown again and again and again, people in power who are then protected by other people tend to abuse that power. Yes, the vast majority of perpetrators seem to be men, but then again, that's because most of the people in positions of power are men. There are cases of women in positions of power who abuse that power and abused other people. It really seems one of the biggest drivers is power. And there's the thing, does power turn people evil, or are evil people attracted to power? I don't know. So Tim Minchin talks about it in his Pope song. Oh yeah, here's a few songs. He had that great one about, Cardinal Pell come home, when Pell was based. Look, to me, it's quite easy to see now. When Pell was hiding out in the Vatican, and it became clear there was actually serious criminal investigation into him going on. Motherfucker knew what he'd done. He knows he's guilty. And when he realized there was an actual serious criminal investigation into him happening, you tell he didn't want to leave the Vatican. He was hiding out there. I think he was somewhat compelled to come back. KK, can anyone tell you how to respond to a particular commenter? I certainly don't know how to have a comment addressed to a particular person, KK. It's definitely not. You think a religion wants sins so they can forgive it? The joke I had as a Catholic was, Jesus died for our sins. So if you don't go out and commit a bunch of sins, Jesus died for nothing. So we have to sin. YouTube. Do I think Catholic clergy like Pell had sex that wasn't rape? This is an interesting question, because the Catholic priest can be, or not just a priest, any religious minister can, as an authority figure. A lot of people are attracted to authority figures. A lot of people in, the congregation might throw themselves at a minister or priest. And I have no doubt a number of priests take advantage of the opportunity when it's offered. But here's the thing, I don't know if you've been noticing more reporting in the media about nuns being sexually abused by priests, being used as sex slaves by priests. That's starting to get a bit of momentum, the reporting on that. That story predates the global outrage over sexual abuse of children in the church. That story actually broke way back before the stories about rampant abuse of children in churches broke. That was about to be a really big story. This is, again, particularly in the Catholic Church, but not limited to the Catholic Church, but it was particularly the Catholic Church. Nuns were being used as sex slaves by priests all over the world. And that was about to be a big outrage. But yes, then the sexual abuse of children was a much bigger attention getter. And the story about the nuns faded away, which I was always surprised at, that it just faded away. But it's coming back now. But for, but for people who go, oh, Nils the nuns do, now everyone's claiming it happened. Why didn't they say so? They did. This story was first reported 2 decades ago. It just slipped out of the public consciousness. Basically, the Catholic Church, and not just the Catholic Church, but notably the Catholic Church, is a very sick institution. And you still have these evil motherfuckers in conservative media outlets and conservative political groups saying that this is victimization. You go, oh, you're only so angry because they hate Cardinal Pell, because Pell was an evil motherfucker. Like, even if Pell had never sexually abused anyone, Jesus, for that matter, even if he'd never protected other sexual abusers, he's still an evil motherfucker. He was really vindictive and hateful to gay people, like, not in a passive, love the sinner, hate the sin, just in a really evil, vindictive fucking way. He was just fucking evil. And people saying, like, oh, you just hated Pell for the stances he took, that's why you're victimizing him now. No, dude, people are generally pretty fucking pissed off at child rapists, honestly. It's a pretty fucking big deal. And these people who just blindly say, oh, no, it's politics. No, dude, it's the fucking kids he raped. That's what people are upset about. I mean, I'm horrified by these people. Laura, you want to bring in logic to religion? Say original sin doesn't make sense. If God's omniscient, he knew. The concept of an omniscient God does not hold up to 5 seconds of logical deconstruction. The concept of God that has become dominant in Western Christianity makes no sense whatsoever. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's like I say, it's five seconds of basic logic applied to going, none of this shit you're saying makes sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. But here we are. Hey, Luke, how's it going? Luke, yes. Sorry, David, you're saying the idea that people are sexual abusers and don't understand the idea that, you know, it should be both people wanting to be involved. I saw, I think it was a tweet, a lot of people screenshotted it and shared it around with, as like someone would go, God, hearing how many men are surprised that women enjoy sex is really disturbing, because if that's a surprise to you, that means you were doing it under the assumption they didn't like it, and what the fuck is wrong with you? I would also throw in, anyone who thinks that is clearly not very good at the sex. If they're assuming what they're doing is not enjoyable for the other party and not something the other party wants to actively seek out, they can't be real good at it. Mixed foxification, I tend to agree with that view. That I know that's in the health world, people often say rape and sexual violence is not so much about the sex, but it's about control and dominance. So it's yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Your wife's more interesting. That's good, buddy. You gotta do your husband duties, as the saying goes. That was the thing. That was the old Catholic Church thing, and I remember that was a line they used in George Orwell's 1984 as well. The central character Winston Smith, when he had been married, his wife wasn't into sex at all, which put him off, and he's going like fucking whatever. But then she insisted they have sex because she'd been indoctrinated into believing it was her duty to the party. You know, they were meant to have children and propagate party members. And that's like, you know, a lot of religions say that women should be totally submissive to their husbands. It's all fucked up. Archie, what percentage of Australia is Catholic? Good question. Let's ask the Google. Percent of Australia is Catholic. We'll see what roughly it is. Okay, 50% Christian, 22% Catholic. So the largest single Christian denomination is Catholic. Of course, you've got all the, so yeah, 22% Catholic, 30% Protestant in the various forms. It was probably higher in the past. Yes, Laura, this is Pepsi Max, but it's no sugar, so nice, losing the weight, 19 kilograms since September. I've lost 7, 8 kilos since the start of the year, which I'm pretty fucking happy with, quite honestly. Yuki, you raise a good point that about them being lapsed Catholics, because that's what people answered on the census. And so some people who are not at all observant will probably make up a decent proportion of the people who say, "Oh, I'm Christian," even though they're not at all observant. That's probably a very good point. That 50% who said they were Christian, a lot of them might be lapsed. So, yeah. But it's an increasing number of people who just regard themselves as non-religious, but from a Christian background. I think, you know, there's only about 15, 20% of the country follows a religion that's not Christianity. 50% say they are Christian, and of the 30, 35% who are sort of non-religious, the overwhelming majority of them were from Christian backgrounds. Yeah, Jim, you're right that some people, particularly if your family was Catholic, if you were brought up Catholic, it can sort of stick with you even though you've like abandoned the religion altogether. When people start saying, "Oh, what religion are you?" some people still say Catholic, even though they haven't been observant at all. Comrade Laszlo, hello to you. On this Voxification, you're saying we're the most irreligious nation on the planet. That makes sense. Yeah, if like 35% of people are saying not religious, that's a lot. Although I'm not sure. I think there might be some small European countries that might have a very large proportion of people who don't adhere to any religion. Although I don't have any figures to back that up. It's one of those things. It's just like a gut feel. I feel sure I read somewhere that is like maybe a Scandinavian country that has like 60 to 80% of people declaring themselves to be atheist. So, Laura, you think I do have less double chin on my overly large. The head will stay overly large though, Laura, because that's bone. The cheeks will probably get a bit smaller, but you know it's pretty fucking solid, massive bone in there. Comrade Laszlo, that is a good point. saying China is the most irreligious. God, see, dude, you're thinking. I'm not thinking, because religion was mostly stamped out by the Communist Party. But of course, now they're having a problem because China's fucking huge. Right? If you're in the West, I know I'm guilty of this, and I think the majority of people in the West are probably guilty of this. You go, China, and you act as if China is a big amorphous blob. Like, China's fucking massive with a number of different cultural and ethnic groups in it, and they're influenced by very different things. And what's been making a bit of news lately is an ethnic group called the Uyghur, who are Muslim, are being full on persecuted by the Chinese authorities. They're literally being put in re-education camps to remove them of their religious beliefs. Seriously, your misfoxification is the champ with Google when we're doing the chat. You're saying China's listed as only 51% irreligious. That does my head in. I thought the communists really stamped it out. But Czechs claim to be 75% not religious. Jim, Uyghur food is good. There's at least one Uyghur restaurant I know in Melbourne. I haven't eaten there, but if it's that good, I might go there. There's probably more than one, but there's one that I know of. MGTOW, see, Antarctica is probably, we're talking as a percentage of population, not as a number of people, because of course Antarctica is rather sparsely populated. Oh, Jim, there's one in Footscray. Okay, cool. Comrade, I think, are you wondering if the religious minority in the Czech Republic gets persecuted the way Buddhists and Uyghurs are in China? And who else? The Falun Gong people. That's an offshoot of Buddhism, isn't it? Is it? I'm not sure. I feel like it's related to Buddhism. Falun Dafa. But yeah, it's of course, you know, hard to be sure what actually happens in some of these places. You said, Comrade Laszlo, when you said Czech religious people, I almost made the slip and said Czechoslovakia, and of course it has not been Czechoslovakia for some years now. It's now the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. I'm not even sure how many of those fucking countries broke. And it's not so much that they broke up, but it was the Soviets who forced them into this identity that wasn't actually real. Yeah. Searching Cavapi or Chavapi. Isn't that those Chavapi? Isn't that's the skinless sausages? Isn't it? I like them. And they're fairly widespread. That you get variations of that through parts of Asia all the way through to the Middle East. The skinless sausages. It's interesting. You of course get local variations. That's why I love looking at the food. You can follow food around, you know, bits of Asia through the Middle East, through bits of Europe, and you see it gradually changes. There's very similar things, and this country and that country, very similar, slightly different. This country, that country, very similar, slightly. And you go as you go around, slight differences, and you keep thinking everyone's only slightly different. But then you compare this 20th country to the first one you started at, and they're radically different. But yes. That's sorry, music over. You got it. Czechoslovakia was created after World War One, but it was kind of forced on the people, if I understood right. It was still very people regarded, although the outside world could not tell the difference between a Czech and a Slovak. They were pretty sure they could. Oh my God, like there's a club in Footscray. Trying to remember. I don't think it's Czech or Slovak. I think it's one of the other Central European country. I'm trying to remember because to the out. Oh, that's right. Because yeah, again, we used to have Serbo-Croatia, and now it's Serbia and Croatia. And again, the outside world can't tell the difference between Serbs and Croats, but they're pretty sure they know what the difference is. And it's a funny thing. I can never remember if it was a Serbian club or a Croatian club that I was in. I was having lunch one day, and the food was meat, and more meat. Big plates of meat. And there was a bar, and the bar had like all these paintings of war heroes. And I'm going, yeah, fair enough, why not? And there was this, I'd call it a creed, a proclamation. And they talked about, let's say, for instance, this was Serbian. And they're going, as a Serbian, it's your duty to always be at your best, always project the best so the world sees the quality of us. And it's basically saying, pretty wholesome things about always behave well, always behave honorably, and people will see our culture and country as honorable. And then it just switched to, like, it was Serbs saying, always behave honorably, and then it just switched to not like those Croatian bastards. They're the filth. It was like, whoa, God, that took a turn. That took a turn really suddenly. Jim, yes, well, Serb wasn't happy when you told her Chavapi is Turkish. Yeah, well, that's like telling a New Zealander that Pavlova's Australian. Really? Oh, wow. Your grandmother was Yugoslavian, married your Maori grandfather when he was in Italy. Nice. That's right, Laura. Okay, you've got it down. Yugoslavia turned into Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. Like, holy crap. They were all just crammed in together, weren't they? Nigga had shots fired. Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. There's a couple of things with Australia and New Zealand that can get very contentious. Oh, yes, Comrade Lozo telling Peter Swedish meatballs aren't Swedish. That dude's a new. Oh, that's a fun one. We haven't been talking about negative enough things, Laura. Let's talk about how the nuclear powers, Pakistan and India, seem on the verge of going to war with each other, because that's super. I mean, that's the fun. I mean, okay, a weird aspect of that for me is I work in IT, and of course, a huge number of countries have outsourced a lot of their IT work to Indian companies or companies who contract the work out to people in India and to a lesser extent Pakistan and Bangladesh, mainly India, as like, Jesus, if they if that accelerates, besides the fact that in and of itself is bad, if they escalate into if not war, major conflict, that's bad. Given they're both nuclear powers, escalations of tension are very bad. But it would be very weird for me and my work that employers have come to rely on outsourcing to India. If that suddenly wasn't possible because of a fucking war, man, that would throw a few fucking corporate strategies into a tailspin. Man. Hey, Hard, how's it going? Haven't seen you for a little while. Yes, no, I don't know which of your two names to try and pronounce. First one I think is dangerous. Shurasei actually seems easy to pronounce. Yes, Kashmir has always been contested. That is true. But again, this is a typical thing. The partition of India that the fucking English did with their divide and conquer. Yeah. David, why can't we all get on? Because we all track back to Africans. Because people are shit, basically. I mean, I swear to God, you know, I watched a lot of art house films in my time, and there was one it's from the 80s or 90s, and it was a Scandinavian film. And of course, you know, to the outside world, we look at Sweden and Denmark particularly as being almost indistinguishable. But historically, the Swedes and the Danes fucking hate each other. And I swear to God, the rest of the world were like, now come on. You both are like blonde and blue-eyed. How the fuck can you tell each other apart? But I forget what the film was called. It was called Lasse the Hero or something. But yeah, it was about massive historical conflict between the Swedes and the Danes. You know, you think of all the ethnic conflicts around the world, the conflicted ones, the ones that have run for generations and centuries, and it was a real eye-opener to me. The Swedes and the Danes hated each other for centuries, if not millennia. And I was like, oh, come the fuck on. How the fuck can you tell each other apart? I know, that's racist. That's racist right there. But of course, yes, they do have their own languages and cultures and whatnot. But yeah, with this film, it was like really fucking full on. I had no idea that the Swedes and the Danes were that against each other. Yeah, here's Foxification Melbourne versus Sydney, you're right. Yuki, you think race backers will have a field day if India and Pakistan do go to war with a flood of things? God, even if they don't, the coming flood of climate change refugees and the conflicts caused by climate change is horrifying to contemplate. It's like, unless we undertake radical action now and in the next 10 years, is like the devastation around the world is going to have millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of displaced people, desperate because there's no food or water in their country and the country's collapsed. It's going to be a fucking nightmare. Tracy, you're in Melbourne v Sydney, you're going for Bris Vegas. Okay, fair enough. Justin, it would be nice if everyone thought there was only one race, the human race. But I don't know, man. People, what's the story with people? Even like I remember this old joke of Mel Brooks's. He had this routine. I think it's like called The Million-Year-Old Man or something. It's like you know, a caveman being interviewed by someone. What's it like? You know, oh, you know, I live in Cave 25. It's great. You know, what's your national anthem? And the national anthem was something like "Screw the people in Cave 27. We hate them." And it's basically just like people will look for the tiniest thing to create an other. Those people aren't us, they are the other. Jim, you're a champion of Oakley Bakery. You think you're going to get world peace through Oakley Bakery's balaclavas? Sell half a trade just one club? Well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe we need to bring the Oakley Bakery balaclavas to the world. Because me personally, big balaclava fan. I really like Mediterranean food, and I like the way Mediterranean food sort of bleeds into Middle Eastern food, because you get those differences. Because there's lots of similarities between Greek and Italian cuisine, but there are unique elements. But of course, Italians don't really have anything like balaclava. I'm getting it. Italians don't really have anything like baklava. And you're right, yes, Jim, it's the Levant. It's the area known as the Levant. But you get the subtle changes. Baklava is, for those who don't know, I pity you because it's fucking gorgeous. It's like a crispy pastry roll with crushed nuts, usually pistachio, and just coated in syrup or honey. Now, the Greek version tends to have chunkier bits of nut, like chopped nuts, rather than finely crushed. Whereas when you get around to the Lebanese equivalent, the nuts are crushed much more finely. Yeah, YouTube, I am actually of the opinion, I am into the Lebanese baklava the most. Outrage anyone Greek. I don't dislike the Greek baklava, but I'm a fan of the lesbian. What did I say, lesbian? That was Freudian. That was a Freudian slip. I like some lesbian baklava. No, Lebanese, not from Lesbos, which is Greek, from Lebanon, which is Lebanese. Oh my God, that was wasn't a bad slip, but it was a slip. Comrade Leslie, I think you're trying to pick a fight there, saying Macedonian baklava is superior to Armenian baklava. Charlie, no, I'm not drunk. That's the really disturbing thing. But yes, I like world cuisine. My favorite. I've always liked Italian food. I do like Lebanese food and Greek food. I like Asian food if it doesn't get too spicy and whatnot. I like Indian food if it's not too spicy. The idea of just living in a monoculture that only has, like, like traditional English food. There are elements of traditional English food that's really yum, but the idea that that would be all I would ever get to eat is, ugh. Miss Foxification, I think I have had Somalian food, actually. You can get, oh yeah, Footscray, of course. There are a number of varieties of African cafes and whatnot in Footscray. YouTube, you're going to go for a trans baklava. Oh, Harb, Mongolian barbecue. I friggin' love that. I love Mongolian barbecue. There's a few places I've been to. There's one where they let you, there's a big thing, and they'll have the really thinly sliced meat, usually a couple varieties of it, and the veggies and a few sauces, and you put them in a bowl and then pass them through these guys who have the big grill, I suppose you'd call it. It's like a big hot plate, and they cook it up for you and put it back in. Oh, so good, so good. See, Justin, I'm not really into sushi. That's one thing I'm not into. But well, sashimi, not the raw fish stuff. There are quite a few elements of Japanese cuisine that I like, but the sushi sashimi side, not so much. No. YouTube, Indian sweets, okay, some of them, and others not so much. Again, if I was going sweets, I'm much more into the ones from the Levant, as we were saying, the Greek through to Lebanese sweets. And cake. I love cake. That's my European side coming out. Cake. I like cake. I like the Comrade Leslie. Mongolian barbecue was actually invented in Taiwan, much like fortune cookies were invented in America. Oh, yes, Miss Foxification, I do like Japanese curry. Katsu curry. Yes, 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 yes. Charlie, you like takoyaki. Yeah, I like takoyaki. I've not been to one of the Mongolian barbecue places in a while, but I do quite like. My kids got very much into Korean barbecue. They cook it at your table, have the thing in your table and a little vent they pull down. That became really trendy, or probably about 2 years ago in Melbourne. And there are still lots of Korean barbecue places where you choose the various things. And there's an actual hot plate or burner at your table and actually cook it at your table. So I've been to quite a few Korean barbecue places because my kids were, God, I had to have this conversation at work. Someone who didn't realize how old I was. There's a thing, the Coles supermarket, their latest thing to try and get people to go to some sticker thing like that. They had the mini grocery items before, and now's the thing that you shop at a Coles supermarket, you get some sort of stickers. It's aimed at kids. And one of the guys I work with to do it got an important question for you. Do you shop at Coles? And I went, like, sometimes. He goes, do you have kids? And I said, yeah. And he said, do you collect those stickers? And I went, when I say I have kids, I should clarify and say I have offspring and they're 18 and 21. So, okay, if I get any of the stickers, I'll bring them in for you. Your kids are really into them. And then he did a double take and said, wait, you said your kids are 18 and 21? How old are you? And when I told him I was over 50, he's like, wow, okay, you don't look it. I go, that's my clean living. This is my good Christian clean living, because I drink Pepsi at work as well. And he's going, what, clean living like Pepsi? And man, it's a health drink. It's a tonic. It's prescribed by doctors. Probably. Shazza, you like kimchi. See, I don't really like kimchi. So, yeah, no. YouTube, you like Ethiopian food, the injera bread with different curries to scoop up. Yeah, I have tried that. Some of the Ethiopian curries are way too hot for me. Oh God, David, your mum, who's 90, ate whale in World War II England. She wasn't a fan. Yeah, that used to be more common. Laszlo, potatoes were cultivated in America and brought to Ireland rather than cultivated here. They're South American, weren't they? The potato was South American? I feel like I've read that somewhere. Origin of potato. Spanish. English word originally denoted the sweet potato, but gained its current sense in the 16th century. That's kind of suggesting it wasn't America. Okay, yeah, South American, I thought so. The Incas from Peru were the first to cultivate potatoes. In 1536, Spanish conquistadors conquering Peru discovered the flavors, carried them to Europe. So I am suspecting what you've heard about Americans bringing potatoes to Ireland is not actually true. Urban legend. Yes, corn, potatoes, tomatoes from the Americas, definitely. I love that we've gone from depressing stuff to food. Food's way better. Food is a way better topic. I've been doing the. I feel like I should stop mentioning brands because they don't sponsor me. I can't get around the fact that I drink far too much Pepsi Max, but they should sponsor me. Who in their right mind would sponsor foul-mouthed me? But anyway, we were talking about weight loss earlier. I've been doing the light and easy thing since the start of the year. So the majority of my meals have been the pre-packaged ones from light and easy, which are really good. And I end up having far more diverse meals than I would if I was cooking for myself, which is weird. And the vast majority of it's really good. But I might have pizza tomorrow. I might. Young Mr. Angry's having a couple friends over, and I might just get some pizza from the local pizza place. There's a couple good pizza places near me. Mega Leach, how's it going, buddy? We're talking about mixed lollies. That's I don't know about the rest of the world, but yeah, that was very much an Australian thing. Going to a milk bar or a corner shop and getting a bag of mixed lollies. Like, I'm old enough that I remember lollies used to get some lollies. There would be a multiple of them per cent. Like some of the smaller ones, you get 3 a cent. So a 20-cent bag of mixed lollies was a decent score of lollies. Not so much anymore. But yeah. Mega Leech, you watched Alita Battle Angel. Spoiler free. Is it good? I love that same musical elevator. The potato was domesticated in Peru, and Cortez may never have found gold in El Dorado, but he did find the golden taste of potato. That sounds like you're in advertising and you're coming up with a campaign for potatoes. Shirley, you may be right that the milk bars not selling cigarettes might have killed. Because, hell yeah, my siblings who are smokers, that was their main thing for going to the corner shop, getting cigarettes. And also the rise of the 7-Eleven as well. But, hey, Sapa, how's it going? This Fox occasion used to get cordial from the supermarket vending machine. Green or red for 20 cents. Ah, us old timers, honestly. Yeah, there was literally a corner shop just on the corner from where I lived. And yeah, spent so much money there in my youth. These days it's more about the convenience stores. Oh my God, I swear to God, like, because I'm seeing Melbourne 7-Elevens everywhere and a few other chains and some independent convenience stores. And then, like, times I've traveled to Perth or Adelaide and they don't have 7-Elevens. And I couldn't work out what the equivalent was. Like, wait, is that a supermarket or a convenience store? I didn't know where to just, like, get shit. Because you get so used to it. And I know when I was in England, the convenience stores were obvious. When I was in America, the convenience stores were obvious. Yet, in Adelaide and Perth, I had so much fucking trouble working out what was the equivalent of a convenience store. Absolutely does my head in. Justin, you can get beer in a vending machine in Japan. You can get worn panties in a vending machine in Japan. You can get anything in a vending machine. Okay. Safa, it's 7-Eleven, a US company. I believe it is. The name is originally the opening hours of the store was 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., which was a really long opening period because most places were only, even corner shops were only open like 9 to 5 or maybe 8 to 6. So 7 to 11 was a big deal. But now, of course, they're all 24 hours. The Spider, David, yes. For those who don't know, a Spider is a fizzy drink with a scoop of ice cream in it, which makes it all fizz up. Yeah, Charlie, it can be Coke. Apparently, back in the 50s in Australia, the drink for the rock and rollers was the lime Spider. So like a carbonated lime drink with a scoop of ice cream in it, the lime Spider. Sure, I see fizzy drink. I show my age all the time. I like that, Tendai. You wouldn't be able to have Coke in a vending machine here because it'd be smashed by the end of the day with people trying to get the beer out of it. This Foxification, that is a good point. There is the equivalent of sleep vending machines in Japan. The capsule hotels, the place where you pay by the hour or whatever to sleep, and the capsule is literally just enough for you to lie down and go to sleep. I have to admit that there have been times when I've been out in the city where I've thought a capsule hotel was a really good idea because getting home seemed like a huge hassle, and a hotel room is too expensive. It's like a capsule hotel, somewhere I could pay a smaller amount to just lie down and go to sleep. Seemed like a really good idea. But we don't have them here. Oh, God, Sarah, Abbott supporting Pell. He seems to be about the least enthusiastic supporter of Pell. When you look at fucking John Howard and the scum fucks in the Murdoch media who are really aggressively supporting Pell in the face of his conviction, Abbott has been surprisingly reticent about supporting Pell. Oh, misfoxication. The independent soft drinks that you get delivered. There were a few. I mean, I even remember, oh God, it was a few years ago now, like when I was living in Sydney. And these places probably still exist, I'm not sure. But this was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I was working and there was an independent soft drink bottler. They just had this one factory that bottled this independent brand of soft drink. So it was really only sold in the surrounding suburbs, and it was still quite popular in the surrounding suburbs. But it was right next to where I worked. And so me and the guy I work with, we could go and get a big bottle of drink straight off the production line for way less than the price of like a can of Coke at a convenience store, because you're buying it straight off the production line. They were giving it to like 50 cents for a big bottle of this soft drink. We'd get one at lunchtime. I think there are probably still a couple of those independent bottlers around, but they're very much a thing of the past. When I was a lad in country New South Wales, there was a bottling factory in the town where I grew up, Dubbo, and that was an independent bottler called Orbells. Orbells did a range thing. And then eventually, I think they licensed the right to bottle Coca-Cola, and then they got totally taken over by Coca-Cola. There's probably still some independent bottlers about, but they're becoming more and more rare. Although then again, every now and then an independent drink pops up, becomes somewhat trendy. What's interesting, I saw an article the other day, and there are still places around the world where Coke is not it. In fact, some places essentially ban Coke from the local market. And the end result is they get a really diverse selection of sodas made locally. If they ban the big conglomerates, they get a really diverse range of local sodas suddenly. It's like, but it's some weird thing like Scotland, Iron Brew still, which is an orange soft drink, tastes a lot like Fanta, which a Scot would kill me for saying, but it does. Iron Brew is still super popular, and I know lots of South American countries that don't have Coca-Cola or have banned Coca-Cola. They have a huge spectrum of local soft drinks. I like that misfoxification. India has a local cola called Thumbs Up, and Coke could never break into the market, so they bought Thumbs Up. A spiced cola with real sugar. Nice. Designed to go well with curry. That makes perfect sense. Sure. So yes, the Bundaberg soft drinks, you get them in supermarkets. I'm not sure if one of the bigger companies owns them. Miguelich is a Bundy creaming soda fan. I think they do like a traditional lemonade that I like. I've used some of the Bundaberg soft drinks as mixers, and they're quite tasty. Charlie, you like Bundaberg's Christmas spiced ginger beer. I saw my favorite cider maker, alcoholic cider maker. There's an independent maker out past Geelong on the Bellarine Peninsula called Flying Brick. They're like my favorite, one of my favorite ciders. And besides their standard ones, sweet, dry, and draft and pear, they do some special ones. And I saw them on Facebook saying they were doing an apple pie cider. So it's like their apple cider with the sort of spices, cinnamon and whatnot to go in an apple pie. I really want to try it. I think it's only on tap at their outlet in the Bellarine. I really want to try it. Dr. Obama, what's Howard? John Howard offered a heartfelt personal reference to convicted child sex abuser Cardinal George Pell. John Howard is one of the many people who've lined up to defend convicted child sex abuser George Pell. He's garbage. Oh, Tracy, that road trip, I do that because there are a few good bed and breakfasts on the Bellarine Peninsula. And the, I don't know, if it's a winery that does wine, is it a cidery that does cider? But they have their outlet where they have usually about 5 flavors on tap, and they do food. Their food is fucking great. So the Flying Brick outlet, I don't know exactly where it's at, but it's on the Bellarine Peninsula. So worth it. The food and the cider is fucking great. I've gone out there for dirty weekends with Mrs. Angry when we want a weekend away, go out to a bed and breakfast and have a meal and ciders at the Flying Brick outlet. Fucking great. It's really good. Here's my other favourite cider. I'll show you. It's just in here. This one is made near where I grew up, really, near where I went to college. It's made in Orange, New South Wales. See, they spell the cider with a Y because they're special. This one is not carbonated. They do carbonated ciders, but this one is a medium dry. I think they do a sweet and medium and probably a dry as well. That's not carbonated. And I was really surprised. I didn't think I'd really like a non-carbonated cider, but this is fucking great. Small Acres, it's called. You have to find a specialist bottle shop who will have this, or go to Orange where they are based in New South Wales. But I was really surprised how much I liked a non-carbonated cider. It's really good. Also, you can make some good cocktails. Speaking of which, it's halfway mark. Maybe I should make a cocktail. So, yes, I did see Dutton is gearing up with the racist rhetoric, saying Australians are going to get kicked out of hospital queues for refugees. That it is extremely clear the LNP is going to go super fucking racist. It was never really in doubt, but it's very clear the LNP is going super fucking racist at the next election. And I just desperately hope the electorate rejects it big time. Like, the Libs need to be fucking smashed at this next election. They need to be told they've lost their way. The extreme right has fucking ruined them, and they need to reject that hard right ideological bullshit and get their fucking act together. They need to be fucking smashed. Like I said, I think the mainstream estimate is they'll lose about 20 seats at the election, whereas an outlier but not impossible prediction is they could lose like 40 seats. I want them to get fucking smashed. They need, and I don't know, Jim, look, I'm with you, man. I don't know if they can learn, but they need to learn the bullshit that they've been doing, been led around by the hard right, there's like, that's representing maybe 20% of Australia. And look, okay, you're the right-wing party. You can do some pandering to the hard right, but to let people who are only 20% of the electorate dictate your policy is fucking ridiculous. And yeah, they're clearly going to go super hard on the racism in the next election, and they need to get smashed. Just deciding if I should make a cocktail. Looking at my little cocktail thingy here. Actually, maybe I could make one with the cider. I'll go to my Bible, Paul Clark's Cocktail Chronicles. I'll look up cider. What does it tell me I can do with cider? Cider, cider, cider in the index. Civil War? No. Citrus? Okay. Maybe it's under apple cider. Americano, Angostura, apple cider, 152. What does it tell me to do with apple cider? A Northern Spy. Applejack, apple cider, lemon juice, apricot liqueur. I don't have apricot. With sparkling bright wine. Okay, I've got the French equivalent of Applejack. Applejack is an American apple brandy. I've got Calvados, which is the French equivalent. American Applejack tends to be made with sweet apples, and Calvados tends to be made with tart apples, so they're slightly different. I might make a tall one. I'll do some Applejack, lemon juice, apricot. I don't have apricot. I have a different liqueur. I've got some fig liqueur. I'm going to put a dash of fig liqueur in, and lemon juice. Dash of lemon juice, dash of fig liqueur, Calvados, topped with apple cider. That's my drink. All right, I've got to get some ice for a start. So let me get this together. Get some ice. Big chunky ice, I think. No big blocks of ice. All right, drunken all my Pepsi. I was already talking about whether or not to vote Labor. I am getting really pissed off with Bill Shorten and Labor being really wussy. They're just going to keep their head down, don't say anything outrageous, and we'll win. And so they're not taking a stand on anything, which really shits me. Yeah, so big chunks of ice. So we've got in the freezer lemon juice, Calvados. Ooh, almost that Calvados. Dun, 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 dun. Get a few ingredients. It's my fig liqueur. Put a dash of that in. And my apple cider. I'll do that. All right. Rather than shaking a cocktail, I'm just going to pour this into my glass. All right. Cider. Put a measure. This is a sexy bottle. It's stretched out. All right. Some Calvados to give it a bit of bite. All right. Cork back in. Just a dash of the fig liqueur. It's very purple. Probably looks black on there, but it's actually purple. A dash of lemon juice. Probably enough. I'm going to top it with cider. All right. do that with my finger because I'm an animal. Oh yeah, sure. I see. I'm with you. Anyone but Dutton. Dutton needs to be gone. I'm gonna do a live stream on election night, and I'm gonna have like this hit list of the people that I really want to lose their seat, and do a shot if they lose, and there'd be like Dutton and Abbott, and basically any minister would be good. So what was that one called that I've made my own version of? Ugh, can't remember. Where were we? Apple, slide out 152. A Northern Spy. And I've changed it a little. You can see I'm in Melbourne in the south. Then I'll call this is a tall Southern spy. I'm christening that. Well, that's okay. Like the dominant flavour is the apple cider. But it's just got little hints together. Would I vote for Bernie Sanders? I don't think Bernie Sanders should be running for president. I think he's too egotistical. I think he's too old. I think he should have groomed someone else. Yeah, there's a number of things I don't like about Bernie Sanders. Obviously, if you're saying who's preferable, Sanders or Trump, I would say Sanders by a long way. You know, what's better, a urinary tract infection or Trump? I'd go for the UTI. So, yeah. So have I had Summersby cloudy apple cider? I believe I have. I like cider generally. Like even just mentioning things like Strongbow cider in a can. I'm quite fine with it. YouTube, I think Ocasio-Cortez has huge potential. She seems really switched on. And because she was an ordinary working person who grabbed the imagination of the electorate, just because of her age, like she has to, I think she would have to serve 2 terms as a congressperson before she was of age that she could run for president, and then she'd be like a record-breaking young president. But it's hilarious how much the right is terrified of her. Like they're obsessed with her and terrified of her. I find that incredibly amusing. Jesus, Sarah, I heard some hint of that. What was that? An ex-head of the union being sentenced multiple violent rapes. Jesus. I only heard like a hint of that. I didn't know how serious it was. So, yeah, but that's the thing. That's power. Like when people say, I'm going to investigate this union for corruption. Well, you're going to find corruption. I'm going to investigate this bank for corruption. You're going to find it. I'm going to investigate this political party for corruption. You're going to find it. Power invites corruption. There may be individuals who are resistant to corruption, but there's no institution that's impervious to corruption. There just isn't. So if you investigate any institution, any body for corruption or bad behavior, you'll find it because it's always there. Anyone who says, not me, not the people I support, is either deluded or quite evil and lying, because any institution has corruption. Oh, Shirasi, the Democratic Party is not pushing Ocasio-Cortez. She seems to freak them out as well, because I think they see her as a loose cannon because she doesn't so much go along with party orthodoxy. But yeah. Shirazi, what do you'd like to dismantle the party system? Well, see, maybe multi-factions is a good idea, but parties rose to prominence for a reason, namely that people worked out, if we form power blocks, we can support each other and develop a brand that voters will recognize and increase our chances, and we agree to support each other and we'll have more power. It's just a natural thing. Maybe, but you look at, and someone who knows world politics better than me, feel free to correct me, but I know there are lots of countries around the world where there is no majority party, where the constitutional leader of the country always has a parliamentary minority and has to form a fairly broad coalition. They tend to be very volatile and change president or prime minister very regularly. I guess there are a number of ways you could argue with it. That's a good or bad thing. But the idea that like a two-party system is entrenched is inherently wrong. Can be changed, can be gotten rid of. David, what do I think about libertarian socialists? I hate the sound of it. I don't know who identifies themselves as libertarian socialist, but I hate the sound of it, quite honestly. Oh, you're cheeky, Shirazi. You mean we'd have to change our PM once every year instead of every two? Yes, but the PM in Australia is only a figurehead. They don't have that much power. The party overall is what has power. So what I'm talking about is these countries that change government, not just the figurehead, they change government. YouTube, do I watch the Young Turks? No, I do not. I have watched them once or twice in the past, but generally, no, I don't watch them. So Justin, Bernie Sanders is the only person who's spoken about abolishing citizenship-based taxation. Ah, that's interesting. See, I hadn't heard that. There you go. Yeah, David, I am suspicious. I'll say you're saying libertarian socialists are anti-capitalist and anti-government. I am suspicious. Who said, yeah, Yuki, you're saying libertarian is being poisoned by the fash. Yeah, and that's true. Anyone who was a libertarian in the 90s and prior to that is probably a bit more sincere in their beliefs, but particularly on the internet, douchebags who call themselves libertarian on the internet tend to be right-wingers who don't want to pay tax. They're full of shit, in other words. David, in terms of libertarian socialists, are there any names I would recognise as someone who declares themselves libertarian socialist? Because my suspicions are raised, quite honestly. Yeah, Shirazi, like Republicans or the Australian Liberal Party calling themselves the party of small government, which is bullshit because they're into completely controlling people they don't like. See, that's the thing. If the right-wing parties, the Republicans in the US, the Liberal Party here in Australia, if they were genuinely of small government, if they genuinely got the fuck out of people's lives, I would have more time for them. But they're fucking liars. They are into completely controlling the lives of people they don't like. They are into complete control of social issues, whether it be abortion, gay rights, drug use, whatever. they're pathological liars when they say they're about small government, because they're about completely controlling people they disagree with. I mean, at least people who are into things like the welfare state are more open about, I intend to introduce policies that control various things. So, YouTube, the age owned by Channel 9, yes. And a lot of people think they can already see changes in the Fairfax media now it's owned by Channel 9. Shirazi, that is such a beautiful description. Libertarians are usually ANCAPs with their Randian bonus still active. ANCAPs, the ridiculously named anarchist capitalists. Again, that's the people who want unfettered capitalism, which is the antithesis of anarchism. Yeah, and they worship Ayn Rand, which is fucking ridiculous. But anyway, David, they think the workers should control everything with no centralized control. Look, the times I've dabbled in politics, the people I identified with most are anarchists and anarcho-syndicalists. The idea of no central control in practical terms, you can't dismantle cities the way they exist, and you can't run cities without central control. So the idea of no centralized control is a meaningless pipe dream. I think we should be aggressively exploring ways to reform both government and the economy, both of which are completely corrupt. And I'm not accepting any political group from that. I've made no secret of the fact I support Labor over the Liberal Party. And if I was asked for a preference in the US, it'd be Democrats over Republicans. But when I say the political system is totally corrupt, I mean that. No political party is outside of the corruption. They are all part of the corruption. So I think we should seek to actively and even aggressively restructure politics and the economy, because it's fucking corrupt at the moment. Even like, look at like Brexit in the UK, which is an absolute clusterfuck. But you can make compelling cases on a number of fronts as to why the European Union is maybe not the best thing for the UK, or is definite. Anyone who says that the European Union is an unalloyed good, that it's a completely virtuous good, is a fucking idiot or delusional or lying. There are a lot of flaws in the European Union, but Brexit is bullshit and was built around a mountain of lies. But what I think is completely valid is people in the UK saying, look, there are a number of things about the EU that is fucked. And if we want to accentuate the positives of the EU, we need to actively agitate to fix the things that are fucked up in the EU. But this whole thing about leaving the EU unilaterally is some xenophobic bullshit. And it was pushed by a bunch of fuckwits who had no idea what they were talking about and never thought they'd win. And they did use a lot of xenophobic bullshit in their argument. But it's not saying that everyone who went and voted for Brexit is an awful xenophobic, evil person. But everything about the Brexit campaign was fucking ridiculous. You turned out the big red bus. That was the blatant lie about putting billions of dollars back into the National Health Service. Oh yes, we're talking about infrastructure. I am a big believer in infrastructure. And in Australia, certainly the Labor Party is the only one who significantly invests in infrastructure. Besides roads, the Liberal Party loves roads because they pay private companies to build roads, and the fucking oil companies and car companies love them. But like here in Victoria, there's major rail infrastructure happening, which is great. Oh my God, they just told us like today that, oh yeah, this major rail infrastructure, it means we're going to shut down nearly every rail line for a month to do this major work, dig big boom. Oh, for fuck's sake. Jesus cunting Christ. Sarah Duggan, are you that same fucking person who does that same fucking shit time and time again? Because I've got no fucking patience and you are out the fucking door. You are out the fucking door, okay? Shut the fuck up with that brain dead fucking shit about the Liberal Party being the champions of marriage equality. I've got no fucking time for it, okay? It's fucking bullshit. And if you're the same fucking you're saying exactly the same stuff in the same fucking way. It's the same fucking moron. I've banned 3 or 4 times, and the same fucking thing is going to happen to you. Fucking moron. Oh, yeah, Shirazi, see what's happening with the infrastructure here. They're actually building this new city loop thing with all these tunnels and shit. And basically, the side where I live, every rail line that goes in there has to go in this tunnel. So they've got to dig this big fucking hole and then reroute all the train lines into it. So they've just told us, oh yeah, basically all these train lines are going to be down for a month, which look, is a major hassle. Like the people who live further out are being told basically allow an extra hour for your commute each way, which is fucking awful. But it's like a month of pain for long-term gain. So yeah, oh my God, people have got a bitch. The train line's being down for a month. People are going to fucking bitch. And it's I'm on one of the train lines, no trains for a month. So the trams are going to end up overcrowded. But yeah, it's for long-term gain. It's 1 month of shutdown for incredibly significant long-term gain. And there are a couple of major rail projects happening here in Melbourne. Oh yeah, Shirazi, the outer ring rail, which won't cause the same problems, that's fucking genius. That is for people who live in the outer suburbs. That is such an amazing thing. The city loop thing, okay, there's been all the arguments about whether or not that's good, but the outer suburban rail loop is a fucking great idea. So yeah, but yeah, this one is the city loop that's going to shut down all the train lines on my side for a month. Oh my God, it's going to be so stressful. Because there's a tram line that goes by my place, so I'm just going to get a tram. But the trams are going to be overcrowded too. Maybe I'll go to work even earlier to just get ahead of people, hopefully. So yeah. Oh yeah, Safa Regional Rail. Yes. I haven't lived in the regions for a long time. I grew up in the country. But yes, I think regional freight rail should get major investment because putting everything into trucks on the highways is really fucking bad. There should be much more investment in rail infrastructure for freight to link the regions and the cities. There's not much appetite for that because it's expensive and the benefits are slightly intangible to most people, but it would be a good thing if there was much more investment in rail infrastructure for freight, because pushing all the freight onto the highways and trucks is a really fucking bad idea. And it's what most governments seem to do, and it's a bad idea. Rail freight is a much better idea. I think Mimsy's just been pushed in to say hello. Can't say you guys won't realize it, but Mimsy, as she ages, is losing a lot. Are you going to come up here? What are you doing? Want to come up here? Everyone wants to see you. You're very popular. Come up here. Come up here. Come on. What are you doing? Are you going to sharpen your claws first? Shirazi, you can tell we're in election season because people are talking about high-speed rail between capital cities. Mimsy, come up here. Everyone wants to see you. Come here. Yeah. No? You can stay down there? She'll come up eventually. She, like most cats, finds things to sit on, and one was my shoulder bag I take stuff to work in, which is black, and she sat on it for a while. So it's covered. For those who don't know Mimsy, she's ginger and white, and she left white hair all over it. Come up here. You know you love being adored by the crowds. Come up here to your perch. Oh, whatever. She's being funny. But yeah, so she left white hair over. But she does that cat thing, and like if there's a square mat, she'll sit on that. I found her sitting on a shopping bag. So it's like I've seen some people show pictures when they make a square like out of masking tape on the floor, and the cat will sit with it in that square. Mimsy won't do that because I actually tried that experiment with her. But yeah, anything like a bag or a mat or something, she'll sit on that. She's a stereotype that way. Well, if you come up here, I'll give you pats. Come here. That's it. Yes. Yes, that's it. Come up here. Yes. Now everyone can see the majesty that is Mimsy. Let's say hello to the people. Yes. You don't normally talk, do you? Yeah? Enough? You're going to settle down? You're going to... No, she's going to headbutt me and demand I pat her some more. So we're going from rail infrastructure to talking about cats. Yes. I can't help noticing what are you sniffing my ear for? That's weird. I can't help noticing she's losing a lot of weight. And as Mrs. Angry points out, she's old. She's maybe 15 years old. We don't know exactly how old she is. We got her from an animal shelter, and she was already a year or two old when we got her. She'd had 1 litter of kittens before we got her. And we've had her for like 12 to 13 years. So she's at least a year or two older than that. So she's somewhere between 13 and 15 years old, which is old for a cat. She doesn't look really decrepit. Like AG had a cat that was really old and really decrepit. It was like much older than like close to 20 years old when he disappeared. The way cats sometimes do when they know they're going to die, they just wander off, and they don't die in your lounge room. They wander off somewhere to die. His cat just disappeared one day and never came back. But his cat was really sort of fucking manky and decrepit in the last couple of years. So, yes. Yeah, Shrazi, she is the grand dame of all she surveys. Yeah, cats are funny. So I suppose, Mimsy, if you pop your clogs, we'd probably, I don't know, we do have another cat. She's just not as social as Mimsy. Shadow is much more timid and unsettled than Mimsy. She'll come up to you and she likes getting patted and she'll get fed. She'll jump on your lap like she's going to settle, but she never settles. Like Mimsy sleeps on my bed at night. Mimsy sleeps next to me at night, because Shadow will sleep on our bed during the day when we're away. So, David, you're a dog person. I think young Mr. Angry would really like it if we got a dog, but no one else in the house really wants to get a dog. He just wants a small dog, whether it be a Chihuahua or something else small. But yeah, he just wants a small dog, but I don't know that that's ever going to actually happen. I had dogs and cats growing up, but we've only ever had cats in this house. But it's like I saw this again recently. You have that meme format where you do a list of something, like the best or the worst of something, and have numbers, but instead of saying a thing like the best, the best anime, and you say, like, instead of having anime and all the numbers, there's just this saying you can't pick one anime because everyone's taste is individual, but number one will be an actual thing. There's one I saw circulating again recently of most violent dog breed, top 10 most violent dog breeds, and as you go 10 down to 1, it says you can't call breeds violent because violence is a product of environment, not breed. But number one's Chihuahuas. Chihuahuas are the most violent, aggressive breed. Oh my God, I saw this story a while back, because Chihuahuas are, of course, a Mexican dog. And they've been quite popular in the southern US and in Los Angeles. I saw this article, and there were photos to back it up, that are in some of the Los Angeles suburbs, there are these packs of feral Chihuahuas. Like, they'd been someone's pet and they'd escaped, and these stray pets had formed packs and they've gone feral, and they're really fucking scary. Like, they're only this big individually, but there's a dozen to 20 of them in a pack, and they're really fucking aggressive, and they attack other domestic animals and people, particularly people on bikes, but joggers and stuff. People get attacked by these packs of Chihuahuas who have really sharp needle teeth. And apparently it's really fucking scary if a pack of feral Chihuahuas. It sounds like a joke. It sounds silly and whatnot, but apparently it's a real thing. And this article had photos of really quite large groups of them. And I was like, okay, dangerous fucking feral Chihuahuas. Yeah, Alexander, weird little balls of hate. Yes. Shara, so you think Australia Post says the worst are cattle dogs? Well, I could see that, because cattle dogs are guard dogs. They're meant to control cattle and sheep, and they're also meant to defend the cattle and sheep against predators. So if you weren't careful how you raised them as a domestic pet, they could be very aggressive. But by the same token, I grew up in the country. You'd have the blue heelers and the rusties, the orange cattle dogs. They're lovely dogs, but I could see, because again, they were bred to be guard animals. Any dog bred to be a guard animal, if you don't raise it right, the aggression is going to come out in bad ways, and they're going to be very territorial. So yeah, a postie could have significant trouble with it. I was just thinking, because I said postie instead of postman, because I was trying to think of a non-gender specific now. I'm going to throw this out to the group. This is a question that a friend of mine post on Facebook, and I couldn't come up with a good answer for it. She works in retail, and she wanted a non-gender specific generic version of sir or madam to talk to a customer. Wanted to avoid gendering how she talked to customers, so wanted a polite but non-gender specific version of sir or madam. And I said comrade, and she said, I'm not calling customers comrade. And I was, wuss. You should definitely call him comrade. Yes, because what do you want, cunt? As soon as she said customers, I was going, that was where I was going. I was going like, what do you want, you piece of shit? But this is a genuine question because I couldn't come up with an answer for it. Is there a non-gender specific honorific, the equivalent of sir or madam, that if you work in retail, you could use for a customer? I couldn't think of one. And there was a huge conversation. Like, this was just a Facebook post that ended up, last I looked, it had like 70 something comments on it. And I don't think anyone had come up with a good answer. Don't know if anyone here can come up with one. I would be, God, Charlie, that's awesome. Calling the customer my love. That is brilliant. Just working in retail and someone is looking at, can I help you with something, my love? Or are you merely browsing? Darling, these are great answers, Charlie. I really like them. Dude. See, some people like up and say, dude's not non-specific. Trying to think if we've got an answer, because I'd be really intrigued if someone could come up with one. I'm going to see if I can find the discussion to see if anyone came up with one. So, because it was interesting, it seemed like a simple question, but I know I couldn't come up with an answer. Okay, it's got 100 comments. It's got 100 comments, and I don't know if there's a definitive answer yet. Yeah, and it's got to be for one person, so you can't even say folks. Hey, friend. Yeah, no, you can't say friend in a retail environment. Yeah, and see, what most people are coming up with is you have to you have to avoid it altogether. Instead of saying, can I help you, sir, or can I help you, madam? Just say, can I help you? I'm not seeing anyone come up with a usable thing in that environment. So it's weird. It's such a simple question. And there's no simple answer to it. Like, everyone piled in with things, but there's no clear answer to it. This is such a simple question. And there's no simple answer. Dow. Yeah, but Shirazi, what we're saying is something that you can use for everything. It really seems like the only solution is to not use an honorific, to just say, can I help you? There isn't a replacement for sir or madam. There is just avoid it all in English. There doesn't seem to be an alternative. I noticed a few of the old ladies in op shops, Charlie, you're right. They can say dear or darl. But if you're not an old lady in an op shop, that is slightly less appropriate. Sure, yeah, dip into non-English words and explain what it means. And they go, what the hell does that mean? You go, well, in Spanish, that's a non-gender specific honorific. I just said Spanish randomly. I don't know if Spanish has a non-gender specific honorific. But that's the only answer seems to be avoid it altogether, which is weird. That seems like such a simple question, but there does not seem to be a simple answer to it. You have to, there's a concession at some level. You notice how all the ones people say, oh, they're non-gender specific now. Mate, dude, whatever. They're actually male honorifics. And I agree, a lot of people use them in a non-gender specific way, but nobody uses a feminine honorific and says, I just use that non-gender specifically. People arc up at it. That's this thing about the male being the default. It's either, can I help you? What are you after? Have a nice day. The only answer in English seems to be avoid it altogether. Don't say sir or madam because there's no non-gender one. And the only answer in English seems to be avoid it altogether. And you're right, Miss Foxification, feminine terms tend to be insults. And if not outright insults or abuse, they are at the very least belittling. And I know I'm guilty of that too. Like if someone's being not nice to someone and I want to put down their behavior in a non-aggressive way but belittle them, it's hard to avoid the temptation to say to a guy, you're being such a bitch. Yeah, throw like a girl. It is really hard to get out of the habit of using feminine terms as negative. No, they're not necessarily an insult, but they're belittling. And that's, I don't know how universal that is in other languages. Charlie, I said comrade. My immediate suggestion was comrade, and my friend said, I cannot call customers comrade. So, okay, I get that. I get that. But that is actually why the communists introduced comrade, because it was non-gender specific. And they were, on paper at least, trying to get rid of sexism. So you referred to other people as comrades. And that was non-gender specific. But yes, it's the Red Scare. You can't get away from that. It's kind of funny. I used to be really into the Judge Dredd comics, 2000 AD, and the judges would just address people as citizen. They wouldn't say sir or madam, they would say citizen. And the judges weren't sir or ma'am, although there is a little bit of sir or ma'am, but the judges were judges. I noted recently in Star Trek Discovery, which I'm really into, they are using sir for women as well as men. So I guess what they're suggesting is in the future, sir is considered to be non-gender specific, which is kind of a cop-out, honestly. But yeah, they call, and the Orville, which is kind of like a comedy version of Star Trek, also says female senior officers are referred to as sir. which is kind of a cop-out. Shirazi, I am an active fan of Disco, Star Trek Disco. I think it's fucking great, and it's just getting better. In fact, a long-term internet friend of mine is a German guy who is, a lot of his internet personae are Klingon names, and he actively hated the first season of Star Trek Disco because of the reinvention of the Klingons. He didn't like them at all, because he'd sort of identified with Next Generation Klingons. And I'll be honest, I don't think Discovery sufficiently justified their reinvention of Klingons. I don't think they really justified it. But even he is admitting this new season of Discovery is really fucking hitting the mark. I am a big fan of Star Trek Discovery. He was calling it STD as an insult, which is funny. I call it disco because I just think it's funny to call it disco, Star Trek Disco. UD13, I'm not surprised. That's an interesting thing that English speakers don't always understand, that a lot of other languages apply gender to stuff that English doesn't. So yes, even what an English speaker thinks is a neutral term, comrade citizen, can be gendered in other languages. Latvian, thank you for sharing with the group. Yeah, Yuki, you are right. There's an incredibly significant change between original series Klingons and the Next Generation, but also the original series, TV series, and the original cast movie Klingons are very different. So I guess that was their excuse for disco. I don't think they really disco, unless they're eventually going to say in Star Trek canon, disco actually happens in a different reality to original series and Next Generation, because they've already had the shadow universe, so they've already introduced the multiverse theory, and I will not be surprised, and also because Michael Burnham is Spock's adoptive sister, who's never been mentioned in the original series or Next Generation or the reboot movies. Never been mentioned Spock having an adoptive human sister. So I will not be at all surprised if they end up getting to the point with disco that they say disco exists in a different reality, a different dimension to original series and Next Generation. What was it? UD13, you use soldier to refer to male and female soldiers in Latvian. I am assuming, my friend, that you are Latvian. Look, the whole thing with sci-fi is you should be able to be wild and crazy. Like the reboot movies are obviously an alternate timeline to the original series and Next Generation. Same basic characters, but a differing timeline. But there are some similarities, like they have that canyon that was formed by the alien attack that happened in Star Trek Enterprise, which was, of course, a prequel to the original series. It's weird. Yuki, I have heard that there was a Star Trek online game that justified the change in the Klingons because they went into genetic engineering. Ooh, Tendai, that would be actually awesome. Crisis on Infinite Earth Star Trek version. Oh, that has so much fucking potential. I love it, actually. So, Safa, you're saying Disney, Star Wars, and alternate universe. Look, I will be in the opposite camp and say I think the new Star Wars movies are fucking amazing, and they are orders of magnitude better than the original series. We won't even mention the prequels because the prequels are fucking terrible. There's some good stuff in the prequels, but broadly, terrible script, terrible acting, don't make any sense. But the new Star Wars movies are orders of magnitude better than the original trilogy. And I grew up with the original trilogy. I was such a fucking Star Wars fanatic as a kid. I kept scrapbooks. I would cut out every newspaper and magazine article about Star Wars and put it in a scrapbook. I was absolutely obsessed with Star Wars, but I will go on record as saying the new Star Wars movies are better by orders of magnitude. I mean, it's cheating to say the effects are better, but the scripts are better, the story's better, the characters are better. But again, this is personal taste. I'm completely okay with someone having different personal taste to me. And while there was that ridiculous mob of MRAs doing their stupid misogynist and racist objections to the new Star Wars movie, plenty of people who aren't misogynist or racist have problems with the new Star Wars movie. And that's fine. It's personal taste. It's personal taste. I don't have any problem with that. But I love it. And I will actually go with you. Safa, Rogue One was fucking great. Rogue One was hardcore. And what a lot of people didn't get, like, because some reviews and talking about Rogue One said this was the first Star Wars film that was really about war. They went, this is nothing. Look, it was all about war. No. Rogue One was the first one that wasn't about the people at the top. It wasn't about the heroes and the generals. It was about the people down in the fucking dirt. It was about the people who went through incredible hardship in the war, people who made morally questionable decisions in war. Rogue One was just fucking great. Oh, Shrazi, you're a huge Solo fan. I want to rewatch Solo. I enjoyed it, but it was kind of like a prequel, and I didn't really do that much more. But I want to rewatch it. But yes, Star Wars, Jim, I like, but I really like the new ones, and I'm really looking forward to the next one, the conclusion of this trilogy. See what happens. You're very cool. Anyway, I've finished my Southern Spy, and I'm going to go to bed. I have to go to work in the morning. Well, thank you, fine people, for your company. It has, as always, been great spending time with you. So thank you, one and all, for taking some time out to spend time with me. Now, look after yourselves. Tomorrow's Friday. Try and do a TFU Friday. I'll try and not have too many post-work cocktails, which tends to make me go like, fucking yeah, I'm a fucking beer, or we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, hit me up on the socials if there's something you want me to make a video about. Look after yourselves. I hope you have a good day. Look after yourselves until I see you again. And until I see you again, I will say bye for now. Click the stop.